Hey everybody, this is Emmy Thomas, and I'm here with Ted. And Ted, I'm going to ask you the same question I ask everyone. What is it like to be you?
Well, I'd say, do you know what I'd say for the most part, it's pretty normal, like in everyday life. Um, but I'd say it really, the nature of my condition only really rises to the surface in certain situations, but for the most part, it's pretty normal. Um, yeah, it's definitely something that I want to explore more, like in depth with myself. But like I said last time that you had me on, it is sort of like it's like I'm there physically, but like there isn't against that lack of self identity. Like Ted only exists as an idea of sorts, if you will. But yeah, that's I guess the best way I could describe it this time.
Sorry, I'm paying attention. I'm turning off this alarm that I had for this, actually. So I need to now
Oh,
turn it off. So I understand this a little bit. I had this conversation actually with somebody last night where they said, well, psychopathy, you have like an advantage, don't you have an advantage? And I said, it's actually more situational. Sometimes it's an advantage, sometimes it's a blind side. Well, it's always a
it's
blind
very
side,
pro
and
and
yeah,
con. Yeah,
yeah. Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah, you can read people pretty well, but you can also be really stupid about yourself. Does that sound right to you?
Yeah, yeah, it does. And but the only reason I know it for a fact is because it's been pointed out to me by other
Mm,
people.
yeah.
It isn't, do you know what I mean? But it has like my baby's mother, like something like really stressful will be happening, and I'll just be pretty blasé about it, and she'll go like, "Do you realize like how you're coming? Like, she's like, do you care? Do you care?" And but I like it's like I will care, but I won't show it, or at least in the way that, do you know what I mean? But like logic, like it's all in the brain with us. It's not in the heart; it's in the brain.
Yeah, I agree. The same person, she was talking to me and she said, that she has a daughter and she said that the daughter can be kind of fearful about things, experience fear. And so this person was like, and you don't experience that, that must be so great to not feel fear. And I thought, well, yeah, it's good, but it's also kind of bad because fear tells you things, you know.
Do you know what I that was one thing that I picked up on it, like, and I was watching again, like when I was researching myself, I was watching your playlist, your videos that you did on the channel Psychopathy is, and the
Mm,
way you described how your fear works is exactly the way I work. It's like it's physical. Like if I'm like near like a height, like my body will move me away, but I won't
mm.
be voluntarily doing it. It's like it's literally like my legs will work on their own,
Yeah.
and so it's like my mind. It's like it's like we're so close to experiencing fear, but it's not an emotional thing. Again, it's more like a logical thing. But
Yeah.
like it's like our body just like does its own, like against our will. It's like you know what I mean. But
Yes.
it's yeah.
Yeah, I've had situations where I've had like trembling hands or something, like I'm doing public speaking or something, but I don't feel that that's me, is a good way to put it. It would be like like if I was experiencing like a cramp, I don't feel like that's me, tensing my muscle. I feel like it's kind of an involuntary thing that's happening to my body, that and I guess how is that different in the way that I feel fear? I I mostly just experience it as, yeah, those physical sensations, symptoms where it's like, okay, I see my hand is shaking. I must be nervous or excited.
Yeah. Well, do you know, I'd say, is there a difference between anxiety and fear?
Mm,
Right. I think it's anxiety then. But one thing that's common with people with ASPD, I found out, it's like these random panic attacks that can happen.
Yeah.
And that didn't happen for me until I was 19, and that was during the COVID, like, lockdown era. It just I was living with my girlfriend at the time, and just all of a sudden, I go from being me to I couldn't even get like, I had to lay on the bed flat on my stomach, and if I tried to get up, I would get, like, a panic attack, and I just became absolutely crippled with anxiety, and I maybe fear, I don't know, it was definitely, like, an anxiety attack, and the doctor said afterwards, when I could eventually get up and go out. But, I remember my girlfriend asking me, she was like, "What's wrong? Like, are you, like, are you traumatized by something from your past?" And I was like, "No." I was like, "I don't know why." I was like, "I just feel like anxiety, but it really severe, but there's no and even like suicidal at times as well during it." But I was like, I don't know why I'm feeling like this at all. And now, I mean, because it was severe back then, but now I've got it like very much under control. Like, as soon as it starts to happen, I've got good control over my mind, so I can bring it down and then suppress it, and then peace and calm since. But it was that one. Can't remember which month it was exactly, but it was just like the most sudden rush of anxiety, and that's I can feel anxious, but fear, no, I don't think so. Like I spoke with last time, like, there's plenty of situations I know where I should have been feeling fear, but like I didn't. And but I think I think I'm grateful for that, because fear obviously isn't a nice thing to feel. Nobody goes, "Oh, I felt fearful." Whoop de dee.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
Well, it's so I think this is something that people maybe don't talk about, know about. I have an experience, I don't think like a full-on panic attack, but the experience of anxiety, yes. So, and my girlfriend has a really interesting story when she was younger. Uh, she was watching a cooking show and they were like showing the chopping of like vegetables like really close up. She was watching it, but she was asleep. She was like a little kid. I think she was like 8, 9, 10 or something. And then she kind of
all right.
woke up and saw the chopping and then had like a complete panic attack. It was like as if the knife was like blurring and then suddenly seemed like really menacing. And then she had a full panic attack. And then she had another panic attack, I think, like when she had first started university. And again, she's like cold-blooded, like her heart, like her Apple Watch wakes her up at night to be like, are you still alive? Your heartbeat is so low or something. But then she had that other experience and she was just like in the hospital and it just came out of nowhere is how she describes it. And it had no trigger, and then she was just on a bunch of Ativan in the hospital
Yeah,
until she kind of calmed down.
exactly. Trigger reasoning, yeah. That there's nothing in the brain telling you, "Oh, it's because of this." Like if someone sees a spider, it's like the spider sort of isn't there. There's just the fear.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah,
I'm
that's
like that with
absolutely it.
rats. Any rodents, like if I see a rat, I will like, oh, kind of jump out of my skin. But that's how it kind of feels. Like I'm not actually afraid of rats. I don't actually feel afraid. I just know I have a phobia of them. Like I can pet a rat. There's no fear that I have of like, oh, I could never touch it or something. I could have a pet rat probably. But then if I forgot that I had a pet rat and saw it out of the corner of my eyes, I'm sure I would be like, oh, this is the worst thing, just for a moment.
Right. Okay. There was like a little bit of a jump there in the picture again,
Mhm.
but we'll keep working through it. No worries. But
Sounds good.
I think I, I know I mentioned it to you. I can't remember if I mentioned it last time I was on, but I said I wanted to keep a journal, and start recording like my thoughts and just things in my life that are happening and how I perceive them. And I've been sticking to it. And if you like, I can read an entry out
Yeah,
if
let's do it.
yeah, we'll see. Okay, so this was started last year. This wasn't I've never been like a new year, new me kind of guy, if that makes sense.
Hmm.
You know, if you want to do something, just do it. Doesn't matter if it's January, February, all of them.
Yeah,
And
I'm new
so I
day,
started
new
this.
me type person.
I don't trust people who say that. I mean, I don't trust anyone because I'm extremely paranoid. Like someone can smile at me the wrong way, and I'll go, he's after me. I'll go, he wants to kill me. I've got to get, you know what I mean? But I really don't trust people who go, new year, new me. I go, yeah. But this is from Friday, the 20th of October, 2023. Um, but today was exhausting. I've noticed that towards the end of the work week, namely Thursday and Friday mostly, but sometimes it even happens on a Wednesday, I get extremely exhausted and drained from all of the social masking that I have to do, the fake smiles, the fake laughs, saying hi to everybody that I don't really want to. I often wonder how is this not only exhausting for neurotypicals, but actually uplifting and normal for them?
Yeah.
I've lost my page. I am slightly drunk now, so you'll have to bear with me. Um, I thought my true identity is starting to show, and Chloe at work has definitely noticed that something is off with me, being the strong empath that she claims to be. I'm positive that she'll be talking to others about how she can't get a read on me, especially yeah. I've noticed that she's kept looking at me rather unsettled. I have exceptional peripheral vision, so she thinks that I haven't noticed, but really I have. Other than that, today was busy in the afternoon. After work, I went to the library to print pictures for my journal cover, to do food shopping, and then to get back to the flat to put it all away, do the washing, work out. I even fixed the smoke alarm. Don't know if you remember last time the issue we had with the smoke alarm.
Yes, I do remember.
Yeah, the astute amongst you viewers will notice that there is no beeping, because somebody left a rather rude comment suggesting that I fixed the smoke alarm, to put it politely, and
Mm.
it actually triggered me to want to fix it. But I didn't feel insulted. I was like, oh yeah, like I should probably do that. So I just went and did it, and I have two smoke alarms in here, and I thought it was a problem with one when it was the other.
Oh,
So yeah, all it needed was I put a fresh battery in the wrong one, basically.
yeah, this is like when it happened, at first I was like, this noise is a little bit triggering to me. But then I thought, this is like a classic psychopath thing where you'll just like let something slide that normal people would just be like driven crazy by. You're just like, this is an okay thing to just kind of like let slide. I was just thinking, I was remembering about this trip because we're planning another trip, my girlfriend and I. And I remembered how she didn't buy her return flight until, like, the day before, like, a transatlantic flight. And I was like the whole time she was there, I was like, you have to be back for work. Like, why aren't you buying your ticket? It's gonna be so expensive." And then when she bought it, I remember her saying something like it was from, some city in Germany, like a pretty big city, so it should have been, like, not too bad or something. And, she was like, "Oh, and it only costs, like, X amount," and I was like, "That's twice as much as it should have cost for, like, a one-way flight." And so I mentioned to her the other day, and she's like, "Well, I've gotten better, haven't I?" And I was like, "Sure, you've gotten better," you know? But that's kind of the thing, is just it's like, things that normally would give other people anxiety, to have not bought your plane flight home, knowing that you absolutely 100% have to be home by a certain day. And she was just
Mm,
not concerned at all. She was not motivated at all. It was like a really interesting example of just like how some things can just slip under the crack, not in this avoidant way, that I think normal people might experience, like, oh, I just can't deal with that right now. It's just that if something is kind of like it's like out of sight, out of mind, like if something doesn't seem important, then it's not important.
yeah,
It's really not. You can just live with anything almost.
Yeah, I do have a funny story that comes to mind now that you say this. So when I was 19, um, I I used to be like a skinhead, like you know, bit of a hooligan, a bad boy. Um, put it behind me now. Do you know what I mean? But I was up in court on like a criminal damage charge, and we were expecting for me to go to prison because bear in mind I'm living with my girlfriend at the time, and our son was 1 week away from turning 1 years old.
Okay.
And I'd, you know, I wasn't wearing a suit and tie every day, so I was in my suit and tie, ready to go to court. My mum was coming with me, and my girlfriend was staying behind to look after our son. And she was like looking out the window, the whole time waiting for me. And I went to court. I got a like a community sentence, like community service, probation, a fine for the damage. I didn't get put away, and I had this. I wanted to get booked in for a tattoo appointment, and the tattoo artist was only like round the corner from the courthouse, more or less. So after I've been sentenced, they tell me, go upstairs, see probation, sign on with them. So I did that with my mum, and then as me and my mum left the courthouse, um, I turned and said to my mum, I said, right, mum, I said, go back to ours. I said, I'm just going to go around the corner, say hi to John, tell him that, show him that, because I knew me tattoo artist, do you know what I mean?
Mhm.
And so I go around and I go, all right, John, he goes, oh, he goes, you're still out. And I'm like, yeah, community service, no biggie, I'll smash it. And I go, so I get booked in for this tattoo. So my mum's gone back to our house on her own. So I come through the door, like, and I'm expecting to be greeted by like, oh, like, I'm glad you didn't get put away. But my baby's mother, she was like fuming with me, and she went, "What?" Because she'd been looking out, expecting to see me and my mum coming back together, but she just saw
Oh.
my mum on her own, thinking that her baby's dad has just been put away for 6 months. So I come through the door and I'm like, I'm like, oh, I'm out. They think they can put me away and blah blah blah. And she said, who do you think you are? She said, where? She said, because my mum had told her. My mum had come through the door, and so Kirsty's gone, where's Dorian? And she
Mhm.
went, oh, he's just gone round to like book a tattoo or something. And she was livid. So I come through the door and she goes, what were you thinking? And I think that there's this like not considering, like, I think a normal person would consider her feelings and maybe not do what I did. But I just thought, well, and I said to her, she said, what were you doing going around to John's before you come here? And I said to her, I'm not even joking. I said to her, I said, he closes at 4:30, and I said, and I'm stuck here with you now. Sure, she weren't happy one bit, I tell you. She didn't see the humor in it.
Yeah. And it's just a different way of kind of thinking, I guess, about like what matters. That's what I mean about the fear. Like not feeling fear is both a good and a bad thing, because fear kind of tells you certain things you're anxious about. I don't know. I don't know if I have more to say about that. I don't know about fear. Other people should talk to fear than me. I'm like the
Yeah,
least
well,
expert on fear to be
yeah,
talking.
we just like we do things, do you know what I mean? And like we just again we're pretty blasé about most things. Like I was blasé, pretty calm before going into court, and she was like, "Oh, what's going to happen? Like, are you going to be able to survive in prison?" I was like, I was like, "No problem." Do you know what I mean? I was like, I don't really. It's to me, it's like moving into another house, more or less. Like I've got to go to this place for like, well, because the sentence was like would have been 6 months max, but then as long as you don't get caught like on any madness, like doing someone or anything, you get like 4 months. So I was like, I can be out in like 3 to 4 months on like good behavior, provided I don't get caught doing any madness. And so I just wasn't worried one bit, and like because at the time I used to shave my head, and my hair grows quite fast. It doesn't grow any longer than this anymore, unfortunately. But
Mm.
I'd shaved my head right before going to court because I was due in on like a Friday, I think it must have been, and they don't move you. Like I knew I'd get put in the cells like downstairs underneath the courthouse, and that I knew that by the time I got transferred to prison, if I did went, my head would need shaving again. So, and what you do is a little trick. You say to like whoever it is, like a screw probably, you go, oh, I need a couple of razors to like have a shave. What you do is you use one razor and you keep the other razor as like a, you know, as like a tool to like slash someone with in case you get into any business and that. So
Uh-huh.
like I had everything planned in my head. Do you know what I mean? I'm paranoid. I'm extremely paranoid. I'm like the best planner ever. You need something planning, just let me know and I can plan it.
Yeah.
Because I'm just like I was watching a thing on, you know, Jordan Peterson. He was
Mhm.
talking about paranoia and what paranoid people do, and he got it exactly right. He said paranoid people like fixate on things. Like there was a guy in work, a new guy I didn't recognize yesterday, and like he smiled at me in a way a couple of times, and I just thought he's got a problem with me. I thought he's definitely got and said to my workmate, Nathan. I went, Nathan, I said, who's that lad in there? And the new lad, he went, I don't know. So I'm telling you now, I said, he said he wants something to do with me. I said, I'll get him. I said, I'm telling you, I'll get him before anything. And he could like the color almost went from his face. And he could tell I was being serious. And he was like, you're paranoid. He was like, you're absolutely paranoid. Like, you need to like calm down. And I was going, nah, it's weird paranoia because your brain, have you ever had it like proper paranoia? Your brain feels different when it's happening.
So I wonder if I have, but I definitely experienced this if it's, I definitely experience like a compulsive, like intrusive thought, like this needs to be thought about more. Like there's something more to this, where I know logically there's not there's not something more to this, but I'll just get super fixated like unless I find
Yeah,
this thing now, like I can get obsessed kind of about certain things, like if they just kind of don't feel a little bit right, and I feel
yeah,
like
that
that's
sounds like what it sounds like. Apparently, there is a thing because I've got the psychiatrist Bible here.
Mhm.
There is this disorder called paranoid personality disorder, and I
Yeah.
definitely, I mean, again, I haven't like done the whole rigmarole I did with the psychiatrist of doing my own self diagnosis and then having them confirm it. But
Mhm.
I'm sure I'd be a prime case for paranoid personality disorder because that's how Jordan Peterson describes it. He says paranoid people, they fixate on something. But I think with a psychopath like ourselves is like we fixate on something, but in like a menacing way. And I'm thinking of all the different ways that I'm gonna that I'm gonna like kill you if you try anything with me. Like we have these big shrink wraps that we use in the factory, and like I imagine like pulling a load of shrink wrap and like squeezing it and like tying it around his neck and then wrapping it around his head like dead tightly. You know what I mean? It's a
Uh,
method of suffocation and like do you know what I mean? It's just like
yeah.
it is sheer like violent paranoia. And but
Uh-huh.
then after like after a minute or two, I'm just completely calm and back to normal. Like it like and I won't even think about it. I'll just be like, oh yeah, do the work, paperwork, whatever. It's just completely just cool as a cucumber.
Well, I think part of the reason why this kind of happens is it's kind of like I said, out of sight, out of mind. But I said this before, I think, talking to people that it reminds me of like these old black and white cartoons where, the characters were like getting out of prison or something, escaping prison. And then there was like a spotlight and the spotlight would show, the character and then the rest of the screen's black. Like you don't see anything
Yeah,
unless the spotlight is there showing whatever the spotlight's showing. And I feel like it's that, it's out of sight, out of mind, but there's also like a hyper focus, like like a,
that's exactly what it is.
and it's not,
Hyperfixating.
yes, it's not necessarily a good thing. It's kind of like,
Oh
you
no, no,
know,
no. Because again, it's like because your brain sort of feels like it's like I imagine like my brain flaring up inside my skull,
yeah.
and like I'll know it's happening, I'll know it's paranoia, but again because I'm like really logical, I'll say to myself, well, what if you're being paranoid for a justified purpose, and
Mm,
what if I tell myself like I get paranoid about So like I'll say to myself, well, what if I'm paranoid? But if I say to myself, oh, it's just paranoia and I leave it, and then something happens, that then I'm gonna regret it. But because I did have a little, uh, not an incident, but basically some lad in work, he's recognised me from when I was a skinhead, and
Mhm.
I was sat in the canteen just on my break, and this lad comes up to me and says, "Oh, you know, this lad is like going around telling people like this, that, and the other about you." I can't remember what it was, but he was telling a load of, he was telling porkies, he was telling lies, and I just sat there. I just went, right, okay, cheers for letting us know. And I was reading a book. I can't remember. Probably, if I'm thinking of the right time, it was probably reading your book, Confessions of a Sociopath. Little
Uh-huh.
plug there. And so I was reading your book, and then I just like I shut it, and I was like, right, I've got two options. I can either let it slide, or I can go full Dorian on him. And I decided to do the latter. So I finished my break, and I just went, because again we can like switch it on, like if like I can be as cute as you want to be with like the big wide eyes and the cute flowery, daisy braces, but then I can just switch it and go absolutely, just I can bad you up, and you know what I mean, you won't be a big man for very long. And I thought that's what I'm going to have to do, like damage control. And I can't even remember what he looked like, and I forgot about this whole thing until the same person who come in and told me about it reminded me of it. He said, "Do you remember when you went up to this lad and that?" And I said, "Oh no, I don't remember it all." But again, that's that being completely oblivious or not caring about the serious things. And he said to me, he said, "You went up to this lad and you just again, I don't remember this, but I've been told I've done it, so I know that I did it." I just absolutely like screamed at him in the middle of the factory floor. Like I gave him a proper load of verbal, and apparently I said, "Who do you think you are?" And blah blah. Blah. It's like, "I'll badge you up," and this, that, and the other. And he didn't return to work again after that. He was agency staff, and he never came back. And I thought, I'm not surprised, to be fair, because I've got a nasty temper. But it's like, I feel like, I don't know if it's the same with you, but like with me, you could never guess that I have a nasty temper underneath.
Yeah.
But it's when that switch goes, it's like we become a whole different person.
Yeah, I used to get told all the time, people'd be like, "You're like the happiest person I've ever met," or something. And I
Yeah,
think
well,
I guess I like to smile, and for the most part, sure. But there are times, where that fixation, it's like that fixation, it's almost like, have you ever seen the game Plinko? Plinko where it's like a disc that's coming down. It's totally random. There's just all these nails, and there's like a
no,
flat
I
plastic
don't know.
disc. Ching, 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 ching. It's for a game show. I think it's The Price is
Oh
Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's like little rods coming out and they go into little
Yeah.
sections.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
Yep.
okay, yeah, I know it, but I just a plinko. All right, okay.
That's sometimes how I feel like my brain with the obsession though. That's what it is. It's like all these little things coming down and it's totally random. Like one of them's way over on the end and it's called obsess about this. It's totally random which one gets over there and gets into the obsession. I know it's like not rational. Luckily there's only been like one time I can think of off the top of my head that I fixated in like a violent way, which I mentioned in the book was, that metro, and gray
The
raging.
rail, yeah, and the train
Yeah.
station on the
Yeah.
escalator.
Gray
Yeah,
raging always kind of like knocks me out of like whatever gear I was in, like productive gear, and then kind of puts me in this like weird neutral and then puts me in a bad gear for the gear
yeah.
is.
No, especially I don't know if it's because I'm male as well and you're female, but
Mhm.
my on it's probably a bit as well a part of like upbringing. Like my dad, I get my whole terrifying temper off my dad. I know it would be weird to picture for people, but I've never known a man, no matter how big or bad he is, I've never known a man to want to come up to me once he's seen my temper go.
Yeah.
And it is like something. Apparently, we get it from the Italian, well, downside of our family. My dad said to me once, he said, we got our good looks and our capability and our violent rage from the Italians in our family. And I like that. You know what I mean? I think that's good. But
Yeah.
but yeah, it's like two different people totally. But it's that paranoia. I'll get very I'll just again I'll just be thinking of like I'll be imagining like violent scenarios in my head, and I know because I don't look it, but I'm very toned, you know, muscularly. I'm very like I look skinny arms, but when I flex, it's like my arms go 3 times as big.
Mhm.
So I know I'm strong and I can take pain. And yeah,
Yeah.
I've had in fact I had it outside my flat once. I had a group of like eight. It was 8 lads. I was cycling to work. I'd only just come out my back door. And these 8 lads who were like 17, 18, one of them threw something at me as a cycle passed. And I just got off the bike and ran into them. And one of them pulled out a bike seat to try and hit me with it. And I just ran up to him. And he took a swing and missed. And then as I went to take a swing at him, he's like, him and all his mates have just gone completely back. And it's like, it doesn't matter how many of you there are or how, I don't care who you are or how big you are or whoever knows your name. It doesn't matter to me. I don't care. You know what I mean? Like I'm Dorian. Like it ain't happening. You know.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting that you said that thing about, you would be a good candidate. I think that's what you said for paranoia, or
Paranoid
paranoid personality.
personality disorder.
Yeah.
It's a cluster A, I believe.
Yeah. Because and I think I've mentioned this before, like my most recent therapist who has passed away, but started seeing him like now it's been 7 years ago, 8 years ago or something. He was like, okay, well, I have to give you like a diagnosis, for like legal reasons. I can't just treat somebody that doesn't have a diagnosis or something. And
Right.
he ended up giving me personality disorder, otherwise not specified. And he was like, yes, of course, you have the antisocial personality disorder aspects. And he was like, but you also have uh, compulsive thinking that made him think that it was obsessive compulsive personality disorder. Now, I kind of am of the mindset two things. Number one is he did say that his take on kind of diagnosing personality disorders, and he said this was the modern trend, was that you have a personality disorder and it has features, like it manifests itself in different ways, but ultimately, the personality disorder is the main thing. It would be like saying, you have a cold and it has different features. Could be congestion, could be cough, could be whatever, but it's
Yeah.
a cold, it's like an illness or something, and like the basics of it are still there. You got an infection, your body's trying to fight the infection, whatever. So in this
Got
sense,
it.
like somebody with a personality disorder would have gotten like an infection or like a not fully developed sense of personality or like identity, sense of self, right? And it manifests itself in different ways and can manifest itself in different ways too, depending on what situation that you're in. If you're in like prison probably is different than your parents' house, or,
Yeah.
depending on your family situation, like different kind of things are triggered. But I've often thought that when he said that obsessive compulsive personality disorder, I also thought, well, isn't compulsive thinking part of being a psychopath? Isn't that?
Yeah. We're always like, I mean, like, for me personally, again, we all manifest in different ways, but like my mind's running at 110 miles an hour pretty much, I mean, all the time.
Yeah.
But yeah, but I've just looked up here for paranoid personality disorder. It's a cluster A personality disorder, and it's described as a pervasive distrust and suspiciousness of others, such that their motives are interpreted as malevolent, beginning by early adulthood and presence in a variety of contexts, as indicated by four or more of the following. And the 7 points of diagnoses, it is such as, I won't go through the whole lot, I won't bore you, but there's suspects without sufficient basis that others are exploiting, harming, or deceiving him or her. Reluctant to confide in others because of unwarranted fear that the information will be maliciously used against them. I'd say I definitely four or more. Yeah, I'd say I definitely do meet criteria for this. But
Yeah.
with antisocial personality disorder, you only have to meet 3 points of diagnoses, and, like,
Really?
yeah, I think that's too low. I'm not like no, it is though, because you can have people who are like particularly callous, or who might not think about their actions, but it doesn't mean that they're a psychopath. But
I
like
agree
I
with
mean,
you. I agree with
I'm a
you.
strong 7 out of 7. Yeah, but I'm a strong 7 out of 7. Do you know what I mean? But I think 3 points for diagnoses is way too low. But
Yeah.
I'd love to, and that is one thing I want to try and do this year. Do you know what? I should chase up my GP actually, because I rang them last year about it. But I do want to be tested under um R the RHPCL, the Robert Hare Psychopathy checklist,
Oh, yeah.
because I've got a copy of it. Like, you can go on Google Images, and there's loads of different ways it's formatted. But I've got one that I like, and like, there's 20 points of criteria, and I meet nearly every single one.
Yeah.
So, and I'm confident that for a fact I would at least meet like a late 20, like a late, because it's 20 points, just for those who don't know. There's 20 points of criteria for the psychopathy checklist. And when a therapist like tests someone for this, like you or me, there's each trait is worth 1 or 2 points. So it's scored on a total out of 40, double of 20. And I know I'm positive for a fact I'd at least score like a 28, 29 to a 30, 35.
Uh-huh.
I just and I've been, I mean, I know how smart I am. Do you know what I mean? I was able to self-diagnose myself, and when the doctors, I was like expecting the nurses when they rang me up, or the nurse, to say, "Oh well, we did read your self-diagnosis, but we didn't think this and didn't think that." Like, they agreed with everything that I wrote, and they were like, "Yeah, we noticed all of this in you." And so I'm very self-aware in that sense, that I can look at myself and go, "Yeah, like, this is wrong and that's wrong," but I might not view it as wrong as such all the time.
Right.
But yeah, I definitely, I'd love to undergo the RHPCL. I'd just love to know what my score is. I'd want to get like a 40 out of 40 though, because I've never got full marks on anything in my life. I feel like if I got a 39 or a 38 out of 40, I'd be a little bit disappointed. I'd be like, "Oh, it's so close."
It's funny you say this because I do think that there is probably a difference between kind of antisocial personality disorder seems broader. It seems like there actually are at least 2, maybe 3 kind of subcategories in there, like maybe it doesn't make sense to kind of especially since I would often say like does it really matter what type of personality disorder you are? But I
Mm.
think it does makes sense to kind of
No,
think a
I
little
I
bit
agree.
like you said, there's some people that are just calloused and they're kind of either for whatever reason, they take risks without thinking about them. And I think that's different than taking risks without even being able to recognize the risk. I think that's like a little bit different. The one can just be like, I don't know, stupid, but that's different from like what you described, which is that your brain's going 110% like all the time, which is how I experience it too. And that's how a lot of the people that I've met experience it. I've had one person said it was like running a bunch of like spreadsheets, like Excel spreadsheets, constantly updating them, constantly all the time, constantly taking in information and processing it and coming up with, probabilities basically, like what's going to happen, what's the probability that this person is this or that or whatever else. And that seems it's not a lack of thought, it's almost like an excessive amount of thought that's, like, thoughtful about stuff that doesn't matter. And then, like, doesn't pay attention to naturally the stuff that does matter, the stuff that's, like, really important. I feel like that's kind of a different way than just somebody who gets really angry, kind of, or really emotional, gets really sad and violent. Like, we don't get sad and violent. Do you get sad and violent?
I th maybe this is gonna sound weird. I feel like I might have, but I can't point out a specific sad and violent. No,
Yeah.
I'd say definitely I felt both, but probably not together. There has only been one person I was really emotionally bonded to in my life when I was a bit younger, say 16. And there were definitely moments of sadness in that, which is like really, it was like weird for me
Mm.
because I was like, it's almost like I think you described it on something, maybe a podcast on here or something else, but it's like hitting puberty in a way that it's like what was happening, like why am I feeling like this? But like
Yeah.
you know what I mean? But sad and violent. No, no. When I'm violent, I'm just angry. Like very angry. Um, and then if I mean if I'm angry, just leave the room and lock the door behind you.
Uh-huh.
I mean I'm saying that for you, not you know what I mean. It is a because I mean I've buggered my hand. See, I can do this with this hand here. See the way my two fingers are raised evenly,
Uh-huh.
but this hand here, I can't raise this little finger any higher. It's like because it's like broken glass. There's like bits of broken glass and probably wood splinters and all kinds that are like left in there.
Yeah.
And but yeah, it's just no. I'm definitely. It's like the anger is just like on its own. Maybe anger and sadness, but
Mm.
like that, there has to be an anger in there. And
Yeah.
anger is only really that's the only real emotion that I feel. I should look it up more, the difference between emotion and feelings. Because sometimes I don't know if I'm feeling a feeling or I'm feeling an emotion.
Mm.
But I'd say anger is the only emotion that I really ever feel. But I can feel sadness very rarely, but whenever I do, like I'll amplify that sadness by like listening to sad songs because sometimes I think it is better to feel really sad than feel nothing at all. So
Yeah.
like I'll be like, oh, I'm feeling an emotion at least, so and even though it's like I'm sad, it's like I'm kind of happy that I'm feeling an emotion, but I'm sad.
Yeah. I agree. In fact, I was watching a YouTube video probably about how to fix something, and then it immediately went into the next kind of playlist thing, and it was like sad songs to feel sad to. And I was like, this is kind of nice, to feel kind of like, rainy day weather or something. I
Yeah,
think that that's probably not that uncommon that like normal people probably do that too to an extent, but I do think that it feels probably different. Maybe it feels the same to them. It's kind of like a respite or, like maybe this is like a good like way to kind of express, like the woman I was talking to last night where she was like, "Well, psychopaths have an advantage. They're not really disadvantaged, they're not disabled." And I was like, "Well, there are definitely
but
cons to like living like this."
yeah, yeah. That's not that's silly. But
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, one thing that I've been doing lately is ever since I've like found out about this, I've been watching movies where psychopathy is displayed and like
Mm,
I've been judging them. I know because you were in a Channel 4 documentary about 9 or 10 years ago,
mhm.
and it's on YouTube, and it didn't mention you in the description or anything, but then you came up and you said about when you were watching Blade Runner as a kid,
Yeah.
and I saw Blade Runner as a kid, and like I really admired Rutger Hauer in it, like his Rutger
Is that the
Hauer,
main
the
character?
actor.
Uh,
Yeah,
no.
no, that's Harrison Ford. Harrison Ford
Okay.
is Rick Deckard. Rutger Hauer has like the white hair. He's the one who like dies.
Oh,
He lets
okay.
the dove go. Yeah, I'm a big cinephile, so I'll call them by the actors' names rather than the
Okay.
character name. But like his character's like dead powerful in the trench coat. But one character, and no one's touched on this online anywhere, I think. But my first ever like 18 rated film as a kid was RoboCop,
Mm,
and the villain in that, Clarence Boddicker. I was thinking about it the other day, and I'm like, he has the hallmark traits of a psychopath. Like he kills like dozens of cops like with no guilt or remorse, and he's criminally versatile. But like when I was watching RoboCop as a kid, I was like, I like RoboCop, but I feel like I'm more of a Clarence Boddicker. So like
Mhm.
I rooted for the villain. I've always rooted for the villain more than the hero, even though I've liked the hero. Like Darth Vader in Star Wars, I'm like, yeah, like he's me. And that's one. But have you ever seen No Country for Old Men?
Yes.
Yeah, Anton Chigurh, he's a classic. I was talking to a friend of mine on Instagram, and he said he kind of reminded me of him a bit. But have you ever read One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest?
I didn't read it. I think I watched it, maybe even in high school I watched it, so maybe it was
Ah, right.
edited.
All right, okay. The book touches on it more, but RP Jack Nicholson in the film, he's there for like it doesn't say in the film for some reason, like don't mention psychopathy at all, but
Oh.
that is like his condition in the book. And obviously because the book was written in 1960 something or other, the term ASPD didn't exist, so it was called like psychopathy.
Mhm.
And it made so much sense. I was like, oh yeah, because like he is charming and he has that leadership quality, and you know he's like easily violent, and he like doesn't do anything for anyone else unless it serves him and things like that. But that was one thing that was like a light bulb moment I had the other day was about Clarence Boddicker and RoboCop. I was like, wow, I was like, he's definitely a psychopath. I was like, I definitely like looked up to him as like a kid, like a lot. Like I really liked his character because he was dead funny. And like when he dies at the end of the film, spoiler alert, you know, I was like kind of gutted. I was like, oh no, I was like, you know, it's kind of me. But
Yeah, my girlfriend is the same way. If you haven't seen this one, I think this is a good psychopath. One is I Care a Lot. It's a Netflix movie.
I don't have Netflix.
Yeah.
I have physical media.
Uh-huh,
I'm
I
a
see.
yeah, I'm a film geek, whatever you want to
Yeah.
call it.
Uh-huh. That's funny. Yeah, but it's like a pretty good female psychopath portrayal, and it's I'm like trying to avoid the spoilers. I'll just say this, my girlfriend really likes it, and she always hates that the psychopaths die in movies. She's like, "Why do we always have to kill the psychopath character, you know? Why can't they
Yeah,
just keep living, keep doing their thing?"
yeah. No, they're definitely. But I think, come to think of it, think Anton Chigurh from No Country for Old Men, which I've just finished reading the book of, by the way, which is a good book. I think he's like the only one out of all the movies that lives, or A Clockwork Orange as well. Alex
Mm.
DeLarge is alive at the end, and that's my favorite one of all time. I have an original like quad poster.
Uh-huh.
Um, you know the British 30 by 40 landscape posters. I have an original one from '72 hung up above the TV.
That's
And
cool.
oh yeah, that's a classic. And that ironically, for a time period that didn't know a lot about psychopathy, it presented ASPD like perfectly.
Yeah. It's
And
almost like when they weren't trying, they did a better job because everybody
yeah,
knows
yeah, yeah,
a
yeah, yeah, yeah.
psychopath in their life. You've all met somebody, but if you kinda get caught up and you're like, "I have to make this guy real bad because he's a psychopath or she's a psychopath," that's when people start being ridiculous, I think, with some of
Yeah,
the
no,
stuff.
oh yeah, like when like they think we're again like going back to what I said last time I was on. A lot of people think that like we're all the same, and it's just it couldn't be further from the truth. Do you know what I mean? Like there will be some psychopaths who like don't really smile at all, or like who used to like I often say a lot. Like I'll go, oh, I love this, I love that, and you know, ironically, I mean, you're gonna laugh at this, but my favorite kind of songs are love songs. Like I like it, you know, that's strange, but like and it can be like anything from like Frank Sinatra's Something Stupid to like Selena Gomez's Love You Like a Love Song. Like there's no like it's just songs about love that I
Uh-huh.
love listening to.
Uh-huh.
And I think that's like really strange. Maybe there's like a subconscious part of us, or me at least, that wants to maybe tap into that, because I thought, well, maybe it's like the melody that they're written in, but I'm like, no, like all different love songs are like, you know, you can get all kinds. I'm like, no, it is just songs about love.
It's funny, yeah, I agree that people probably wouldn't guess that, of a psychopath. Here's another one that I often think of is they were going to make like a for like a hot second, they had optioned the TV show and even written a pilot. It never got bought by anybody. But in the pilot, it had like the character that was me, I guess, like leave dog poo, on the sidewalk or something and not pick it up or something. Like in the opening credits or something. That's what's happening. And it's a little bit funny because now when I see dog poo like there's a public trail close to where I live that I walk on, probably every day a little bit walk on the trail. And when I see dog poo, I'm like, what happened here? Like you guys couldn't even get a stick and just like throw it, kind of like flick it into the bushes or
Yeah,
something. You
yeah,
guys
yeah,
just
yeah.
left this
No,
huge pile of dog poo.
100%.
Like,
I mean, again, yeah, no, exactly. That's what I think. Because again, one thing that I watched was that psychopaths, like, we tend to judge. We don't judge people individually. We judge society as a whole. Like
oh,
if you say to us,
interesting.
like, yeah, it's like if someone points out to one of us like oh, like so and so like left their dog muck like over there, and like our
Mhm.
response would be like, oh well, everybody does it, and we tend to like generalize people or generalize society. It's like it could because we're different from the rest of
Wow.
people, and we're because we have an elevated like sense of narcissism, we're better than. So it's like, well, they all do this, but I do this. Do you know what I mean? But
That's
it's that's like the
interesting. But
yeah.
I thought it was funny because it was just like the TV show that was like an inaccurate portrayal. Like I wouldn't leave it on the sidewalk. Here's the thing that I would do though. I wouldn't, number one, have a dog because because I wouldn't have an emotional connection to this thing. And then I would have to take care of something. It would just be like this thing that's demanding my attention. Like I'm not a good candidate for dog ownership, especially a dog, maybe a cat or something. But I wouldn't get anything out of the cat either. But if I did own a dog or if I was watching a dog and if the dog had to poo or something, I'd be more likely to honestly have it poo on somebody's front yard than I would a public sidewalk. And the reason why is that of somebody's front yard, they're going to take care of it. A public sidewalk, like that belongs to everybody. And because it belongs to everybody, there's something that economists call a collective action problem, which
Yeah, it's
is,
communal.
yeah.
It's communal.
So people will just leave it there for, days. And that's what people do on this trail. They just leave the dog poo. Nobody like bothers to do it. So sometimes I just grab like a bag from and that's the other thing. This trail has like free dog bags like everywhere. It has trash cans like every 50 meters. So there really is no excuse kind of, but
Yeah.
sometimes I'll just grab a bag and then just collect dog poo along my way and just throw it in the trash cans because nobody else will do it. And I think, this is like a net loss to society to like have it be in these communal kind of areas. So that's the thing that they don't get right sometimes is it's not like we're just letting dogs poo wherever or whatever. That's not what makes a psychopath. I really think it's not the psychopaths who are letting their dogs do whatever wherever. It's probably more just like normal people, and I don't understand them either. I don't understand that mentality, so I get how people don't understand psychopaths and kind of think, like since I don't understand them, then they're scary. Because I also am a little bit freaked out by normal people, since I don't understand them. That freaks me out
Y-
sometimes. What
Yeah. So,
especially things like mob mentality, that's really
well,
scary to me.
I'll tell you what, the girl that, because I read my journal before and I said Chloe has seemed to notice something suspicious. There was a girl who
Yeah.
used to work. She was agency staff at the place I work at, and she took a liking to me, started talking to me, and we were working together. And she just randomly like turned to me and she went, "Do you have any feelings?" And my brain, I just instantly, like, I didn't even look at her, but like I stopped what I was doing and I was like, and I went, "How would a normal person answer this?" And so I turned to Chloe and I said something like, "Oh, sure." I said, "I have loads of feelings." Uh, but I mean, later I rang up my baby's mother and as because like, she's like my consultant, so
Mhm.
I rang her up and I said, "Hey," I said, "this happened at work," and I said, "And this is how I responded." I said, "Do you reckon I flew under the radar?" And oh, she said no. She said you couldn't have sounded more like a psychopath, and I was like, "Oh, okay," but but this but this girl at work asked me this question. I gave this answer, and I said to her, I said, "Why do you ask that?" And she said, "Well," she said, "I've been talking to you for like 3 days, and this was on a Wednesday, and she'd
Mm,
started talking to me on a Monday. She
yeah.
said, I've been talking to you for 3 days now, and like I can't get a read on you, and it's really like annoying me, like it's making me kind of like nervous, but I still want to talk to you."
Uh-huh.
And so and I said, all right. So I said, well, she said to me, she said, I'm one of these people where she can tell how someone's feeling when they're at the other end of the room.
Oh,
And so she obviously she's gotten up close and personal with me,
yeah.
and she can't get an emotional read on me. Kind of like the way I imagine it, it's like, if like people are TVs and the
Mm,
TVs are tuning into each other and they can get a clear picture and a sound. But like with psychopaths, it's like you can't get a clear picture or a sound, like there's something missing.
yeah.
So that, and that's the way I explained it to her, but I didn't use the word psychopath, of course. But I said, so is it kind of like you can't get a signal on me like the way on a broken TV? And she went, yeah. She said, there's just something that I can't tap into. And it's
Uh-huh.
like, I almost know it's not there. But she said that it like really like freaked her out. And like it was like I was really like she was besotted for a brief period with me, but like, she just couldn't help but have this feeling of like something's not right with this guy. There's something weird, and I mean I had no ill intention
Yeah.
towards her as I do anyone, but she knew that there was something a little something there,
Yeah.
and I think that's amazing.
It is
But
amazing.
that,
It's also a little scary. It scares me a little bit when somebody does that because then you're like, okay, they know that I'm different. And who are they gonna tell? And, like,
yeah,
how are they gonna spin it? Is it gonna be a negative thing? It doesn't have to be a negative thing. Come on, guys.
yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, because we're so positive and cheerful, we know how to spin something.
Mhm.
But yeah, that's what I was thinking. I was going. I mean, especially like because women like to talk and gossip. I'm thinking, and the part of the factory where we were working is mainly like female dominated. So I'm like, well, she's definitely going to be talking about this with like all the other because she likes Ted and so she's definitely going to be talking about this with other people, and nobody in work has any idea
Yeah.
about my condition. Like they all think well, there's some people that have picked up on a couple of things that have risen
Mhm.
to the surface in moments. But I've got it under wraps. No one has really any suspicion. But I was thinking to myself then, I was like, she's going to be telling other people about this conversation. What are other people going to think of me? And then that's when the paranoia starts to build up again.
Mhm.
But I was pretty all right with it for the most part. I thought, well, no one can prove anything. So
Yeah. So this, uh as you're talking, I thought of 2 things. One, when you said that by Thursday or Friday, you get pretty tired, like drained from having to kind
yeah,
of,
I fall
mask.
asleep on the bus home from work. I mean, it's that, you know what I mean? It's like I'll not all the way asleep, but like I'll like my eyes will close and I'll open them every like 30 seconds, to get off at my stop. But yeah, drained, definitely.
Do you think, there's, like, any way around that, you know?
At the moment in time now of this recording, I'd say no, I don't see one. Whether there is one is I mean, I'd like there to be, definitely. One thing that I've decided that I'd like to do this year is be able to form because I mean, I'm not for some reason, I know the reason, but like I cannot form long lasting friendships or relationships. I was thinking about the last time we spoke on here,
Yeah.
and you said how you have a ton of friends. I'm like, how is this possible? This woman has the same condition as me. She has a ton of friends, and I literally cannot keep and make a friend. I have one that there's one mate that I talk to over Instagram video call, and because he used to be a skinhead, like me, and like we've both got out of it now, so we have that in common. And yeah, good kid. And But yeah, it's just it like we were talking about it, excuse me, on the Discord server,
Yeah.
with an Italian lady, Psychopath, and she just put this thing in the group in the chat saying like, does anyone ever get it? Where like you'll see someone, meet someone, find them interesting, want to be friends, and as soon as you establish that friendship, you just immediately hit a brick wall and go, "Oh, I'm bored of you now. What was the point?" And then you just throw that person away
Yeah.
and repeat the cycle. And that's exactly what I do. It's like in school, I had friends that were long term, but that's only because I had to go to school.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. But in my adult life, I will just simply I'll get bored and I'll just simply I'll just ignore your messages and just because it mentally drains me trying to keep a friendship. It's like mentally draining. And I'm just like, I don't have the energy for this. I don't care enough. Like, why would I even care? And I just disregard it. And I want to change that. I've fucking wrote it down here to talk about. Um, like that's my goal this year. I do want to meet the girl that I want to marry because I want to be married. Do you know what I mean? I don't think there's anything really else that a man wants more in life than to, meet a beautiful woman and, make love with her his whole life. That's the dream.
Yeah,
You know
especially
what I
someone
mean?
who loves love songs.
Oh, I know, because I'm so soft, aren't I? But
Yeah.
yeah,
Well,
but
you is it okay to say something about you like that, may or may not be true, but something maybe I've observed?
okay, okay, this is interesting. I'm interested now.
Yeah.
Go on.
I mean, it just seems like you do value, like, the idea of, like, love and a relationship, like, you do seem to have an aesthetic for it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, an aesthetic definitely, but it's like I want to feel it, it's right there, and I want to feel it. But really, it was pointed out by a girl that I used to fancy, and I said to her that I loved her, and she was like, "No, you don't love me. Like you just have an obsessive crush on me." And like
Yeah.
I didn't really like sort of receive it. I was sort of a bit starstruck, and I was like, oh, do I? So, like, do I not know what what that is?
I wanna know what love is.
Yeah, and, but looking back on, like, my, like, history, it's like she's right, I'll meet a girl, and I'll just, I'll just get an obsessive crush and, like, you know what I mean? But, like, there's no a crush is, like, all in the head really, more or less, but, I don't get, like, the weak knees. Sometimes I get like the butterflies and in the tummy and stuff like that. But I do value it, but it's like I can't get it. You know what I mean? It's like it's right there, but I'm trying to get it, and it's just like I can't. I just can't get it, but I want it, and I do want to have a girlfriend, and then like when people like like when her friends say, oh, like how does Dorian treat you, and oh, I wanted to go, oh, like he's the best, he cares for me, and like I want to be the center of her universe, and
Yeah.
like I think that that's a nice thing, and but yeah, I do have an aesthetic. It's weird. I do have an Again, it's that self-awareness. I haven't realized this until you just told me. I do have an aesthetic for love. Like even like I mean, I guess you could sort of say the way I'm dressed now in like the pink shirt and the cute bow tie. I call this the disarmer be- because right, I've noticed like when I'm outside, like because I wear a suit and tie like 7 days a week, and
You.
yeah. Well, I believe in putting 100% into my appearance. I think that's very important. And so I always wear a shirt and tie, sometimes a bow tie. And my favorite one to wear is like just a black suit and tie, with like golden strap cufflinks and a golden tie bar, and very like smart black, dark. And I call it the real me. I have like names for my suits, and I call the black suit the real me. because like it's black, you know, there's nothing there. And I've noticed like people are very like they look very cautious of me when I'm in my black suit and like
Mm,
their black sunglasses. But when I'm in like my pink shirt and like flowery, you know, like even the cufflinks, you know, like
mm,
daisies,
mhm.
like people are more like they smile at me more. So like I call this the disarmer because it's very socially disarming to people. You look at someone dressed like this and you think, oh, you know, he's a nice guy. Do you know what I mean? You know, I am for the most part, but it's just you wouldn't know my true nature. Do you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah, the disarmer and the real
Yeah,
you.
I can't stop thinking about that. Yeah, I definitely do have an aesthetic for love. It's like it's honestly it's hit me like a bombshell, and, which not a lot of things do.
Mhm.
So that's very rare.
Yeah.
But and I'll have to like have a thinking man moment on that if you know what I mean.
Yes, that'll be something interesting to think about for sure. It kinda reminds me, actually, I'm not gonna tell that story.
You
Well,
can
it's
tell
just
it
like
if you want, Emmy.
mm,
You can tell it like afterwards if you
yeah, yeah,
want.
yeah. Well, it's about somebody and it's not that it's not it like it's private or something. I'll just kinda tell you the important part. It's mostly that the story's too long to
Okay,
be
yeah, yeah. Okay,
interesting.
okay then. We'll do it that way. We'll do it that way. We'll do it that way.
But somebody said in a relationship to their now ex, ex-girlfriend, like, "Oh, you left plenty of clues." And sometimes I feel like that's what I'm doing to my own self, is like I'm leaving clues for me to like later find and be like, "Oh, what? What is this? I actually don't like to do this or actually do like to do this or something." Like, it can sometimes it feels like, I know I've mentioned this before, and, you're a cinephile. Have you seen the movie Memento?
No, is that Christopher Nolan? I
I
might
think
be
it is
wrong.
Christopher Nolan, yeah, I think it is.
Yeah, I'm not. A lot of people are like into him, but it doesn't really vibe with me. Like I like. I mean, I like all kinds of movies. I'm just looking up at my shelf now that's over there. But it was my dad who got me into cinema. Again, RoboCop was like the first one. You know, that's 1987, if I remember correctly. But now a lot of like newer movies I'm not really into. Um, but yeah, it's like older films like 60s, 70s, 80s, some 90s, but like even older movies like, you know, Casablanca, Rebel Without a Cause, you know, The Wizard of Oz. I'm a big like I'm a big like 4K collector. Like I'm in a couple
Uh-huh.
of 4K groups on Facebook, so like I'm always looking at the latest 4K releases. And like, oh
Mhm.
yeah, like this movie from the 60s just got released on 4K. Like I've got to get that. And
Uh-huh.
but yeah, but the only thing is, I don't have a beautiful girlfriend to what's the to relax with me, and that's the only thing
That you're missing.
missing.
Is like
Yeah,
this person who could end up being your wife. But the
yeah,
thing about Memento is he has like and this is just kind of the I guess construct that like it's hardly even the plot. It's just what the character is. He has like a severe amnesia and he's not able to remember anything basically after, this accident that he gets in where he gets the brain damage. So he'll leave himself clues though, like remember to do this. He'll put like these post-it notes all over the place. And sometimes I feel like I do that with my own self or like when I notice something about myself, oh, like I really don't care for this, or I really do care for this. It feels like I'm just finding post-it notes that another me has left there for me to kind of like realize, "Oh, I guess
yeah,
this is true about me."
yeah. It kind of like that kind of reminds me of what I said earlier about how people in work have like noticed certain things,
Yes.
and like I can't because where I work we have to use like these they're called pneumatic pump trucks. They're like
Mm.
electric pump trucks basically, and if you worked in a you know like the two forks, and you have to push the handle up and down, and it's like an electric version of that. And I was working in one part of the factory, and someone told me, oh, some other guy on a shift, who's like some sort of drug addict, like broke the truck. And so on my shift, I was speaking to a mate of mine, Nathan, and I said to him, I heard apparently some like crackhead broke the truck upstairs, and like now we've got to use this pump truck to move like these bags of product that are like 1,250 kilos, and it's a pain, you know, it's bad for the knees. And Nathan was like, he said, oh, he's like, I know him. You know, he's not a crack. He said, you're dead horrible, you. He said, you're really horrible sometimes. And it's like that nature comes to, and I'm like, all
Oh.
right, he's noticed. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. But the big one was one time I was working, I was like palletizing boxes, and I was in that area at the factory palletizing boxes with a guy called Norman, and immediately like production just came to a stop, and like the head bosses from like upstairs came in, and they said like, can everybody gather around and stop what they're doing. And I was thinking like they're going to tell us that we're out of a job, you know what I mean. And so we all gather around in a big circle, and this Chloe girl who's like sussing me out a little bit is there as well. And and all it was that some woman who worked in the packing hall had like died, and he said like, "Oh, we want to have like like a minute silence," but like he didn't even say like a prayer or anything. It was just like a minute silence for this woman who passed away,
Mhm.
who used to work here. Like she was agency staff, and she'd just been given a contract, and then she died of cancer or something or other. And so like everyone was having this like they turned, because we have a radio where we work, and they turned off the radio and everything for this minute silence. And like I was more annoyed that the radio was like turned off than anything. And so like everyone was just stood in a circle for this minute silence, and like everyone with their heads down and eyes closed, and I'm just like up like that, like I'm like sort of like playing along, but I'm like watching to see when everyone's like, you know what I mean. And like I didn't get it though, because like this big boss had said to us, "We'll have a minute silence," but he didn't like say a prayer. It was just like we'll stand for a moment in silence for this person who's passed, with like no religious context or anything. So I was like confused, and I thought, well, we didn't all know this woman who'd passed away. I'd never heard of her. I can't even think of a name or anything. But I was like, I didn't know this woman. Why have I got to bow my head for a minute silence?
Yeah,
And
what's it
then I
doing
was
for
after it.
her or for us?
When it ended and we all went back to work, I said to this Norman guy, I said, "Wow," I said, like, did they really just like stop everything just for that? And like he was like nearly in tears, and he looked at me, and he was like, "Oh," he said something like, "Oh," he went like, "Oh, f off," like she was a, but like he swore, and he said, "Oh, like she was a nice lady and she was nice to me when I first came in." Like he was like crying tears, and I just thought, "Ugh, like I'm gonna go over here and like, you know what I mean? I don't really need any of this, boo-hoo malarkey." But 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 yeah, like that was like when he was like he was like proper, like he was like annoyed about my reaction, and I was like,
Oh,
oh, I was like, Dorian, you need to like, you know what I mean? Like there
yeah.
are times where like I just can't be bothered pretending to like pretend about what I feel. So I just honestly can't be bothered with it. It's like it's like day by day, I just can't be bothered masking.
And I think that story is really interesting to me because it's clearly trying to accommodate like the emotional needs of the people who are like, experiencing kind of a more neurotypical emotional world, but they don't seem to care at all about accommodating, your emotional world. Like they'll just constantly impose on yours forever. There's never going to be a special accommodation. Sometimes it
Oh,
reminds
I know.
me.
It's like, I've got I've got to, I've got to pretend to care about this person who I never met and who I never knew. And
And
in
if
my
you
head,
don't
I'm thinking,
care, there are consequences. There are social consequences. People will get angry at you.
yeah, yeah, but it's like again with their anger, it's like it hits a brick wall with me. It hits a brick wall with them, but like I'll just be like, I don't care that you're angry with me, and like they'll get even more mad that I
Yeah.
don't care. But But yeah, I think I used a phrase in my journal describing something, typical neurotypical hypocrisy,
Yeah.
and like I think that's like that's like a title for something. Like that could be like an album. Do you know what I mean? Like typical
Mm.
neurotypical hypocrisy by and
Uh-huh.
but people. I feel I've always felt like people are such hypocrites.
Yeah.
I've gone like you're such a I've felt like, and again that's what again I think that's another thing that plays into like that narcissism of psychopathy. You look at people and they act like because of the way they feel they'll do something, and I'll go, well, you knew you shouldn't have done that, but you let a feeling get in your way. Like, who do you think you are? You think you're better than me? No, I am better than you. I am more in control than you. I am the best, and you are the worst. And do you know what I mean? But it's it just blows my. But he was annoyed.
Yeah.
It just again it just sort of hit a brick with me. I was like, I don't care whether you're annoyed at me or not. I was like, I literally don't care. And but like this Norman guy, he started crying like proper tears for this woman. And like I didn't cry at my own nan's funeral when I was 11 or 12. When I found out the news, my mum and dad told me, they said, "Oh, your nan's passed away." I cried for about 10 seconds and then it just stopped. And then at the funeral, I didn't cry, but it wasn't like I wanted to cry, but I was holding it back. I just didn't have a need to cry after that.
Yeah.
But yeah, but it reminds me of the theme of like emotional maturity. Like one thing that my baby's mother used to say when we were living together, she said sometimes it's like I've got another child with you. Like you're just so emotionally like immature. Uh, which like should have been like a clue, but really like the writing was on the wall. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And but
Yeah.
yeah,
I mean, I for sure agree with that. There's like an emotional, well, it's kind of like an emotional stuntedness, but I agree that it doesn't really involve, like, often when I think of the word emotional stunted, like somebody's emotionally stunted, I think of somebody who's kind of bitter and kind of clueless, but that's not really how it shows up with us or with me. It shows up with me kind of like you're right, like in a childish way, like a childlike way. And in fact,
yeah,
I think
I've read that as well on like various like different podcasts and videos. Like a lot of like medical experts, they believe that like they say often a sign of psychopathy is that we're very emotionally immature. It's like
yeah,
either we don't have the emotion that's required in that certain situation, or like when we do have an emotion like anger, or it's out of control. Like we can't control any emotion that we do feel. It's very difficult. Like I
yeah,
described it last time, like if I have like what you call gray rage, like if I
mhm.
can hold it in, like I'll feel like immediately like tired and sick. It's kind of like again going back. It reminds me of A Clockwork Orange. You know the Ludovico effect. This have you seen it?
I have seen it, but it's been too long. I don't remember.
Right. Well, you know when the protagonist, Alex, gets out, he undergoes this treatment from the
Yes.
government so that like
Uh-huh.
he can't be violent, and every time he tries to be violent, it makes him like physically anxious and suicidal and sick. But it's like that, but it's like it's not when I try to be anxious. It's when I try and suppress the feeling. Like I'll just go into like this sick, not anxious, but like sick, tired, almost like a desperate state, and like I'll have to like sit down and be like, oh, like what's happening? And well, I know what's happening, yeah, it's like that.
So
It's
tell
just
me what's like that again. So what triggers you to feeling like that? Like a gray rage type thing?
it's not grey rage. It's holding in the grey rage.
Oh, okay, yeah.
It's like having to hold it in. It's like I can't do it, but
Yeah.
I'll feel nauseous because of it, and I feel it
Yeah.
in my head, and I'll just have to like my legs will go weak. I'll have to sit down and compose myself, and like I'll even like ever it's really ever so slightly, but like I will feel like ever so slightly like almost like I want to be sick, but I don't.
Yeah.
And but I can control it, but it's awful. I do try and not let my anger get to me, but it's just it's the again, it's like the only emotion that's easily accessible for me is
Yeah.
anger.
And it all it's easily accessible, I think partly because it demands our attention, like, it's not like
Can't
sadness
ignore
kind
it.
of yeah, you can't ignore it. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
it because it has so many physical symptoms too. There's, like, the adrenaline, maybe cortisol, like, there's so many different ways that the fight or flight
Skin tingling, fists
yeah.
clenching, and you just feel like you have the power of 1,000 men and just to, you know, yeah. Um, like I had there was an incident like this was last year, ages ago, and like we've patched it up since. But
Mhm.
me and my baby's mother, we had an argument over the phone, and again, like we have that sense of like you can't have authority over me, don't we?
Yeah.
And she blocked my number when we were in the middle of an argument, and like like my blood just boiled. I was sat here in the flat, and like it just came up saying like Kirsty has blocked your number, and I just like my brain. So I went round to the house because I wanted to. I think I wanted to see my son that weekend. Again, it's always over the most petty little things. And so I went round. I got the bus all the way to hers, and I knocked on the door, and like I had the intention of doing this, but I just like I wanted to I wanted to start an argument, and do you know what I mean? Like I was just in that malicious mood, and so I knocked on the door like loud. I've got a bailiff's knock. My mate's parents used to say as a kid. They say every time you knock, we think it's the bailiffs because I've got a dead loud, like I've got a bad man knock. You know what I mean? So I've knocked on the door. She's opened it, and she's going, "What do you want?" And I'm like, "I just want to see my son." And she's like, "Oh, you can't right now. Like he's asleep." Blah blah blah. And then she slammed the door on me, and you don't do that to a psychopath. So like
Mhm.
again, so I've just let rip. The door is like it's like two thin glass panels with like a plastic strip in the middle. It's like frosted glass, and I've just punched the because I'm right-handed, so I'll punch like the left panel of glass if you're facing out the door. Like, but I've just punched this frosted glass like 3 times. I nearly put my fist through, but it just went bang, bang, bang. And then I've just like my hand is just absolutely covered in blood because like I nearly put it through. So like the glass was just like it was inside my skin, and I could feel it, but it didn't feel like like when you reject pain. It's like I felt the pain, but I just didn't care
Yeah.
because of the adrenaline as well. And I got the train home, and I remember trying to get a ticket, and the guy was like, "Oh, like you're like," because I handed him like it was my right hand, so I handed him like I got the ticket with my hand covered in blood, and like my shirt was covered in blood, and like even like you know what I mean. I was just covered in blood basically, and he was like, and this ticket attendant at the train station was like, "Oh, like mate, like your hand, like are you okay?" And like I had a go at him, and like I know that I shouldn't have done it, and like I know I shouldn't have done it, but whether I regret it or not, I'm not sure. But I
Mm.
said I just started shouting at him, and I said, "Do you want to be next? Because I'll come in there and I'll let you know what I mean." And like he just went, "Whoa!" He's like, "Go get the train and go home." So I've just got on the train, like I'm wearing like a black suit and tie with a white shirt that's just like got red all down it, and I had to throw that shirt out. It was a nice shirt as well. It was British made.
Mhm.
And that was what I was more annoyed about than anything. I was like,
Uh-huh.
I've got to throw my favorite shirt out. But yeah, it's just the rage just built up in me, and I just like I just and she called me, and she was like, oh, like she said what? She screamed at me, Emmy. I'm not even messing. Like she screamed, and she was like, "What have you done to the door?" And
Mm.
she was like, "Our son was asleep." She said, "You woke our son up, and he started screaming and crying." And because she said the noise, because I've got a powerful punch on me, so like if I punch something, like the noise will just reverberate around the room.
Mm.
And she said the noise just like she said the whole house shook. Those were her words. She said the whole house shook like 3 times, and
Mhm.
and she said our son woke up screaming, and she's like, it took me like 20 minutes to comfort him, and I did regret it, but I was just angry, and it was just it was a proper mad episode. But like I
Yeah.
do realize that I'm very emotionally immature when it comes to anger. So when I'm feeling angry, I'm like, I've got to suppress it, otherwise something will happen. I paid for the damage on the door because I said to her, I said, "Oh, I said, are you going to have me nicked then?" And she said, "Well," she said, "I've got to get this door fixed." I said, "Right," I said, "I'll pay for the door. Don't ring the police. I'll pay for the door." And I paid for the door. I think it's fixed now. But
Mhm.
it cost me 150 quid. I was gutted.
Mhm.
Oh, I'll tell you, I was gutted. 150 quid just to have a rage. And my dad come round my flat that day, and he was like, "Are you all right?" I was like, "Oh," I said, "I've just had a row." And he went, and he saw me like covered in blood, and he was like, "What have you done?" I said, "Oh," I said, "I've just punched Kirsty's front door." And she went, "You?" Well, my dad was like, "You what?" I said, "Oh," I said, "We just had a row," and I said, I just couldn't help myself. I just like, it was like I had to get up and do it. Again, it was like sort of with fear, like, like my body almost did it for me.
Yeah.
And, but we're on good terms now. She comes around here with my kid, and, we're on great terms. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But she knows about my condition as well. So like, she knows what she's dealing with. And like I think I asked her like for advice on buying a DSLR camera. Like she'll pick up like, like whenever, like there's one thing she's always said is like, um she said, "You'll always like ask me for advice, but then I'll give you my advice and then you'll disregard it and just do whatever you think is best anyway."
Mhm.
Um and I was asking her for like a type of camera to buy, and she like gave me perfectly sound advice, but I just went, I said, "Nah," I said, "It's all right." I said, "I'll do it myself." And she said to me, she went, "You're doing it again." She said, "You're doing it where you just think you know better than me." She said, "You asked me for my opinion on something, and then you'll disregard it." And she says, "It's really annoying." And I said, "Oh," I said, "It's just what I do. I, I'm not really trusting of anyone else's opinion. It's like we always know better."
Yeah.
Do you ever have you ever had any experiences like that?
Where I know better.
Yeah, 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 like you'll ask for someone's opinion on something, but then you'll just instantly go, "Nah, it's all right, I'll do it myself."
Well, I think often when I ask somebody's opinion about something, uh, like what opinion they give me, I'm like, that's more a reflection on them than it is like an answer.
That's how I
Like,
view it.
yeah, I'll always nitpick it and be like, "Oh, of course they would choose, the safe bet, or of course they would whatever." And then I often think, well, nobody can know anything, you know? Yeah. I've never been able to like learn, uh I mean, not obviously not, like, I can learn in school, I've learned math, from people teaching me and stuff, but there's certain things, kinda life lessons that I haven't been able to learn from people. I've just had to learn from, like, making the mistake, like, 50 times in a row, you know? Where it's like, how can I stop doing this? Oh, I guess I just have to make this mistake another 12 times or something, you know?
Yeah, with that, we don't learn from the consequences.
No.
Even it's like, even if we know, we still don't learn.
Yeah.
And like again, it's like going back to what you said about someone saying like there's no cons to being a psychopath. It's like, no, there is. It's like we just like we can get in trouble 50 times for the same thing, and then we'll do it like another 51th time, and we'll go, "Oh,
Yeah.
I'll get away with it." Do you know what I mean? It's like we just don't learn from the consequences of our actions. Like
Yeah.
it'd have to take something like pretty pretty severe and almost life changing for us to recognize that and think about it in the future. But if that doesn't happen, then boom, it's bound to happen again.
Yes, a really good example that I have not yet learned from is when I'm traveling, I will leave stuff in the hotel room. like all the time. I will just be constantly like every hotel room that I'm in, basically I'm leaving one thing. And I can't figure out how to keep track of my stuff or how to like put it back in my bag or what's going on. Another one is the laptop before this one. Uh for whatever reason, I have like a bag where like the laptop can come like in and out of like this backpack from the side or something. And every time I open it up to bring the laptop out and then put it back, I'm like, I need to zip the zipper. I need to make sure to close this. But how many times have I not done that and it goes like flying out or whatever and it cracks the screen. So that's what happened to my last laptop is it fell out of the backpack and cracked the screen. And it's
Yeah.
like I can get angry at myself, but then also like I can't really because I just know that this
It's
is
just
just kind
you.
of yeah, it's the nature of the beast or whatever. It doesn't mean that I don't want it to change. I certainly do want it to change. And, I try to do my best to try to figure out ways to change, to get better about it. But I'm not good at it. I'm like very poor, very below average at this, like the
Yeah,
very
yeah.
bottom 10% or something, like
I did. You know what?
stupid.
I never used to have it, but like I kind of have it with like my phone now. Like I just like I'll always like drop my phone, but because the screen hasn't cracked or anything hasn't happened, I'll just go, oh well, I'll pick it back, I'll check it, pick it back up, and then it's like nothing happened. Do you know what I mean? But like I think like other people would be like so cautious
Yeah.
about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I actually remember one time, one of my friends this I don't do this anymore, now it kind of makes me, like, a little bit like, "Why did I do this?" Did I love these memories where you're like, "That's crazy, that feels like another person did that, not me who did that." But my friend was talking to me about, like, "Oh, your phone," and I was like, "Yeah," and I got, like, the Apple Care, it's like iPhone or something, and it can get, like, 2 replacements for, like, 50 bucks or something, and he said something like, "Oh, don't you want a case?" And I was like, "I don't care," especially with the Apple Care, and I took it and I threw it against the wall, and it's like, "Why? Why do that?" And now I think, "Why did I throw it against the wall? What's the point?" I wasn't angry. It was just to kinda show him that I didn't care, but also I didn't care, even that he believed me, It was just, like, the most like, I could give no Fs about whatever in that situation. I was just like, "Whatever."
Yeah. Well, funnily, I had a similar situation in work today. I was working in like we all work on the same floor, but I was working in my area, and another guy from a different part of the factory floor come up to me, and he said, "Oh, was that you shaking the stairs when I was on it?" Which
Mm,
ironically I think is like a very psychopathic thing to do. He was working on these high stairs and and I said to him, I was like, no, I was like, I wasn't, I said, I'm busy doing this. I said, I wasn't shaking the stairs. And he was going, yeah, you were. And I said, well, no, I wasn't. I said, tell you what, Matty, I said, if you want to think that, I said, you just go ahead and think that, mate. I said, I'm really not bothered. You know what I mean? And he just laughed. I was like, I said, I'm telling you, mate, like, I literally don't care if you, I was like, I know I didn't like shake the ladders that you were on.
mhm.
So it doesn't bother me.
But a pretty good guess, that it would have been somebody like you. But I also think this is the sort of stuff, though it's kind of like the dog poo, where it's like yes and no. Like, would you actually shake the stairs? You probably wouldn't, because there's
Yeah,
not really. It's not like I think a lot of times people think that we get joy in like doing something that's antisocial, when really we're just doing it. I think probably the most common reason why I'm doing something antisocial is because I don't realize it's antisocial. The second most common reason
yeah.
I'm doing it
I
is because
feel
I
like
do not care.
yeah, it's a 50-50 between like that and just like pure boredom.
Yeah.
Like
I
you
mean,
know,
yeah, boredom I could
I
totally see, yeah. It's almost like an impulse, like you just kinda do something, but even that's not like you're trying to like, there's so few things that I do that are, like, maliciously motivated, where I'm, like, trying to, do something antisocial for the purpose of it being to shock somebody or something. Like, I am rarely trying to shock people. I kinda don't care enough what other people
yeah,
think to care to shock them or to care to scare them or to care to hurt them or to care to do anything to like I don't even think about them. They're not on my radar, except in like the way that I think of like a computer game. I think of them as bots, like how do I get the
yeah.
bot to
That's
move over
you know what?
here?
That's that's one thing, is like I've always, whenever I'm talking to someone in person, and there's only one person who I've ever known who has all the hallmark traits of a clinical psychopath, and he like doesn't know it. He'll have questions about himself. I don't talk to him anymore, but it was my best friend's dad when I was a teenager, and me and him always had sort of a mental bond. But like, have you ever had it where you've met another
Yeah.
psychopath? Yeah, and like you always
Sometimes I
stare
don't
into.
even have to meet them. I just like I hear about them, like Patrick. I don't know how you say her last name, Gagney. She's writing a book or something. She had like this article in the newspaper, and I was just like, okay, I understand. But sorry,
Yeah,
keep going.
well, it was my best friend's dad when when I was like a teenager, but did see him about roughly a year ago, well, a bit less than a year ago. And like one thing is that like, because people have always, you've probably had the same, but like we're always looking into people's eyes.
Yeah.
And like I've had loads of people say to me like, "Oh, like why are you looking into my eyes?" Or like, "Why are you looking at me like that?" My baby's mother says that my eyes are like a special phenomenon, even like amongst psychopaths. Like I'd love for there to be studies in my eyes, but she calls them serial killer eyes. And
Uh-huh.
but like me and it was my best friends at the time, her dad. Like he always made eye contact with me, and like it never phased either of us. And like I always knew like we had a special mental bond. And my best friend used to say it was autism. She used to say, "Oh, you and my dad have like a weird autistic bond." So it's like she was close, but like way off the mark at the same time.
Yeah.
And she hated it. She used to say, she said, "I hate it when you and my dad are in a room together because you always gang up on me and you always
Uh,
make fun of me." And like I feel like that's so true. Like when two people like us are in a room together, like we vibe off each other.
mm,
And then like whoever's like the neurotypical, whoever like the normal person is that's there, like will tend to like not gang up on them, but you know, like we'll like pick them out a little bit
yeah.
socially.
Yeah.
But she used to say, "I hate when you and my dad are in a room together because the two of you just gang up on me and like you just vibe off each other." And she said, "There's something not right about it, and I hate it." And if you'd have walked into a room and said to us, "Oh, it's psychopathy," we'd have both just laughed at you and gone, "That's ridiculous."
Yeah.
But
And you're
now,
being over dramatic.
mm,
Like, you know, it's not that bad. That's how
yeah,
I thought
that's what I
too. If
used to
somebody would
think.
call me,
That's what
yeah.
I used to think. I used to go. I didn't even really see it like that. I used to think, well, we don't gang up on you. What are you talking about? But looking back in hindsight, like maybe a little bit sometimes, but I don't really see it. I still don't really see it that way.
Well, I think one thing that might have been happening, kind of just a guess, and you know, like I talk to somebody like you differently than I talk to like a normal person, like or somebody that I don't know is a psychopath is a good way to put it. And I think it's a little bit like I talk differently to somebody who's like quite older, you know, where I know they're just kind of a different kind of cultural something, or you know, if I talk to like a priest, I talk to
Yeah,
them differently,
yeah, yeah,
you
yeah,
know?
yeah.
And so it's just kind of like you get used to talking to people differently, you know, out of, you know, respect or kind of like a good, you know, good communication and just trying not to cause problems with them usually, you know, like just I mean, mostly just trying not to trigger my own gray rage is what I'm trying to do. I don't want to piss people off because if they get pissed off, then I'll get pissed off, maybe, you know, etc. Uh, but you know, when I'm talking to somebody like you, then I'll say stuff, you know, that I normally wouldn't say to people. You know, we could say cold-hearted things, including about, you know, the people, you know, some observations that we've made about people we know. So I could see that happening where it's just, you know, you're talking to each other and instead of trying to speak her language, you know, you're vibing off each other. You know, you're speaking each other's language and she's listening in
Yeah,
and
yeah,
being
yeah,
like,
yeah.
I bet normal people listen to this conversation and have a similar experience where they're like, "Huh, this is a little this is a little cold-hearted." Like, I'm surprised at some of the things that they've said.
Yeah, I think definitely like the way that I told you about the guy crying over the woman dying at my work. I'll probably be
Yeah,
listening to that going like, wowzers, like some people have probably clicked off by this point, but we don't
yeah,
care, so it's okay. But
yeah.
But
Well,
yeah,
it's
that
good. I think everybody should have like an outlet for like being their true self. I think actually, and this is again, I was with that woman I was talking to last night. That's kind of one thing that I mentioned is like, a lot of the negative things that people experience about psychopaths, like they're two-faced and they lie and stuff, they probably still would lie and that maybe they'd be a little bit two-faced, but some of this stuff honestly is because people are kind of forcing them to pretend, like forcing us to mask, forcing us to, not
yeah,
be forthcoming about what's really going on in our heads.
yeah, like, exactly. It's like social contagion. Like
Mhm.
you can't be like people will be mad at us when we show our true nature, but then they'll also be mad at us at, like for not showing our true selves at the same
Yes.
time. And it's like, well, which one do you want? Do you want me to be the real me, or do you want me to be the comfortable version of me? Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's
Very
like,
well put.
yeah, exactly. Again, like I go back to what I say in my journal: typical neurotypical hypocrisy.
Exactly, yeah.
And
But, and that kind of thing, so it reminds me of this. I think often, like, people are making accommodations for non-psychopaths all the time, like these emotional accommodations. I even, like for work things or something, like, everybody understands that if your grandma dies, basically that's an excuse. Whatever, we're gonna reschedule or turn something in late or whatever. And that is an accommodation for normal people. There are like so many ways in which we have these accommodations for normal people. I think I've mentioned before, one of the most shocking ones to me when I went to law school was that if you're like angry enough when you kill somebody, then that's like could be a justifiable killing. Like you were temporarily insane because you caught your spouse, sleeping with another person, and so you killed them
yeah,
both, and you don't even go to prison at all. I was like, "How is this a thing? How is this?"
wow,
Like, they
really?
yes, that is a
Is
total
this like
thing.
just true in America, or like
I don't know, and
you'll have ended
most
the law in America, won't you? In American law school,
yes,
so
yes, yeah. Most criminal law is in the United States is by state. So California law is different than New York. So each one of them have a different kind of, about what qualifies as temporary insanity or insanity in general, but they're mostly kind of patterned actually off of British law. And so there's quite a few similarities. I think it's like Naughton, Naughton. This is me like remembering, you know, decades ago law school. I think that's the standard. That's like the legal case, the standard about it. But yeah, it's a total thing. People have gotten 100% off. In fact, do you watch oh, you don't have Netflix, but I'll just tell you, in a Black Mirror episode in this most recent season, that's true of one of the characters, is that the person had killed the wife and didn't end up serving time or served basically no time because he thought, but was incorrect, that his wife was cheating on him and just got so angry that they were like, "Well, we get it." That, and that's the weird thing is that like you have to know that normal people think that like, "Oh yeah, I probably would do the same if I was in his shoes." And I think, "What? You guys would kill your spouse?" Like you would do the same? Like there's shocking things about normal people to me. Here's something that shocked me recently. I was a little bit shocking. I was at the zoo and I was watching the orangutans, and one of them is like a juvenile, like kind of a toddler, probably not like a full baby or something. And then kind of a middle, like, young adult orangutan came over and like took one of his toys or something. And this little girl in front of me was like, "That's mean," or something. And the dad was like, "It's not mean. They're just playing." And I thought, wow, this little girl is like 3 years old, but she already has like an opinion about like what's mean or not. Like she's already willing to say that the older orangutan's bad. Like, it's just a weird. I just feel like there's such an impulse to apply, like, a moral what code to everything, where I'm like, "It's not mean." It's just what it
yeah,
is. It's just nature. It's like sharks they kill humans sometimes. Like tigers kill humans or whatever. Like, it's not mean. It just kind of is what it is. But they're
yeah,
like, I kid you not, at the zoo. So we're watching like a little presentation about like I think it's called pygmy falcon. So it's a predator bird. And then somebody asked, like, does the falcon feel sad about something? And the zoo person was like, they don't feel sad, they don't experience feelings, But it was just kind of interesting. Like people get so kind of caught up in their own experience of the world that it's like they can't help but project their kind of version of reality on kind of everything they see, that orangutans mean this pygmy falcon feels sad, like just a weird kind of thing. And I just think they're just different. Things can be just different without us having to put a value judgment on it, either like a morality judgment or this is good or this is bad. Things can just exist. Like the diversity of nature, just like the diversity of people, is its strength. If nature wasn't so diverse, then it would be more fragile. And that's the same with societies. That's the same with like, even a family, like a smaller group of people, I think.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, especially yeah, that little girl from such a young age, like knew like this is good, this is bad, this is mean, this is nice. That's quite fascinating. I'm sure I read something somewhere not long ago where it was like we don't have like a sense of morality from like the age of 6 or upwards normally. So like maybe like that one child was like particularly well developed in that sense. But
Mhm.
yeah, definitely. That's definitely food for thought.
Yes. Well, I've talked your ear off, especially this last little bit. Do you have any other things that you want to say before we wrap up?
No, I mean, I've been keeping the journal. Like I said, my main goal now, I want to be able to have long lasting, I want to have a long lasting relationship. And I do, but I keep thinking of that thing you said, I've got an aesthetic for love. And like, that's so, like, that is true. And I think like I'm a very, like, even amongst psychopaths, that's like I'm a very much an anomaly within that.
Yeah.
I definitely don't because the way I hear people describe love in love songs is like they say it's a warm, fuzzy feeling, and it's like I don't have that. Like I know I don't have that, but like I definitely do have a longing of sorts for that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That's a good way to
But
put it. A longing of sorts. All right. Well, let's talk about that next time. I'm curious. Give it another few months again because I'm curious
yeah,
now that you know that you have an aesthetic for love. Like, has does that change anything, or does it not
I
change
did. Do you know
anything?
what
And
I
even
did?
that's interesting.
I did write in my journal that about my love of love songs, and I said I'd love to unpack this with a therapist and see what they have to say. So
Mhm.
maybe I'll see if like I'll talk to my GP and I'll see if I can get something fast track, and
Okay.
I'll let you know on Discord. And if it happens in time, then I can talk to a therapist about it, and then I'll come on again and go, oh, they said this, and we'll explore that. But
Okay.
yeah,
Perfect.
definitely that's all I've got.
All right. Well, thanks for coming back on. It's been such a pleasure as it was the
Oh,
first time,
absolutely.
and I can't
Yeah,
wait
definitely.
until next time too.
Oh, neither can I. Thank you for having me on again.
No
And
problem.
yeah, it's been better. No smoke alarm beeping. Again, I've got to apologise to the females in the audience, to the women. Last time, I did swear a few times. I don't like swearing in front of women, so I do have that. That is a part of my moral code, if you will. I,
Hmm.
in women and children, they will not hear me swear. So, but I let a few slip, so apologies. And but yeah, that's I guess that's all I've got to say. So until next time, Emmy. Until
All
next
right.
time.
Sounds good. We'll talk to you later.